Hey guys, welcome back to the channel where this time we're going to be taking a look at the rule of two and was the rule of two really successful for the Sith? Did this really benefit them in the long run of their quest to maintain control of the galaxy? And I think there's a lot of different ways to approach that question, so we have to start with looking at why the rule of two was put into place. And it's essentially because you had a time period where all of these dark side users calling themselves Sith were, creating these armies and these legions of uh, Force users that, may or may not have been considered true Sith, but were dark side influent. And they kind of killed each other. You had all this bloodbath and all these Sith vying for power. When you have that many bodies kind of fighting over control and dominance, it creates chaos. And what was essentially happening is that the Sith were wiping themselves out. Darth Bane realized this, and thus the rule of two was kind of created to limit the path that a Sith could access to be considered a true Sith. The idea being you have the one who holds the power and the one who craves it. So you have one powerful Sith who takes on an apprentice and trains him just enough to be competent, but not enough to where he's able to overtake the master. Now, there are several instances in the course of the Star Wars universe where the apprentice did overtake the master, most notably being Palpatine killing his master Darth Plagueis in his sleep and ascending to that rank of being the one true Sith. Then Palpatine would go on to take on Darth Maul as an apprentice, then Count Dooku after Maul, and then ultimately Anakin Skywalker or Darth Vader. And I think the idea behind Palpatine, as far as he viewed the rule of two, Palpatine never intended to have any of his pupils overtake him to take that top Sith spot. Palpatine honored the rule of two, but at the same time, Palpatine had his own ambitions that were different than the regular Sith. Palpatine viewed at taking over the galaxy a different way, some of which he learned from his masters, some of which were his own designs. And I think even Plagueis recognized early on that Palpatine was not exactly following the true code of the Sith. Palpatine had a lot of disrespect towards the Sith of old and the ancient ways and kind of wanted to do his own thing. And so, because of that, the rule of two ultimately culminates in the Sith being destroyed because he never allowed Vader to seek out any pupils or apprentices. It's kind of implied that that's maybe what he wanted him to do with Luke, but we know Palpatine really just wanted Luke to kill Vader and take his spot and become the next apprentice. But Palpatine never intended on giving up his power. And as the Sith shouldn't, because the Sith are selfish, the Sith do not want to lose power. That's the allure of the dark side is having power and fearing losing it. So they will hold on to that power until they are dead and gone. But as far as any Sith tradition or upholding the rules, I really don't think Palpatine was interested in any of that. And you can get into the essence transfer aspect of it, as far as being able to transfer his essence into the pupil so that he can live on. But that's a newer concept in Star Wars and not something I want to focus too much on here. Because I think at the end of the day, I think the rule of two was successful in maintaining balance for the Sith and keeping them from being completely unorganized and chaotic and wiping themselves out. But at the same time, I think it relied too heavily on the Sith that were a member of that duo to uphold their responsibilities. For example, if you have two Sith and you have a master that, refuses to teach his apprentice anything, and the apprentice flames out and, ends up being defeated or killed, kind of like how Maul was, then you're back to just having that one Sith with no contingency plan if something happens to him. So I think it relies very heavily on the users and the participants of the quote unquote rule of two to maintain that it stays that way going forward. So it is very flawed, and it definitely sets up a lot of conflict between these masters and apprentices where they're trying to outsmart another. And I think that takes a lot of focus away from their ultimate goals. And I think the Sith could be a lot more successful if they work together, but the nature of the dark side doesn't allow for that because each individual only prioritizes themselves, which ultimately is the nature of the dark side of the Force. Well, that's going to be all I got for you in this video. I appreciate you watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button to help the channel continue to grow. And as always, may the Force be with you. Now let's blow up that like button and go home.